apparently the mainstream media has really been getting on the Joe Biden is wonderful kick, and they really love all the policies that he's been putting out. So he's been getting a lot of favorable coverage, basically, which isn't too surprising if you're watching the mainstream media these days. And certainly, a lot of it is a hell of a lot more preferable to Joe Biden than what would be preferable to somebody like Donald Trump, and even somebody like Bernie Sanders too. So recently, Joe Biden did pass the 1.9 trillion dollar stimulus bill, and the media is pretending that it's really progressive, and they're pretending like it's like this amazing piece of legislation, and it's so it's so progressive and it's so FDR like. So we're gonna get into all the different kind of stuff they're saying. I'm gonna read you the article here. So let's get to it here. So this article is from a Business Insider, I believe, and they decided to pretty much do as much of a fawning piece as they could. Let's check it out here. So let's see. Yeah, so what do we got here? So basically, okay, so let's see. They say the historic $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan just passed the House of Representatives for a second time, sending it to President Joe Biden's desk to be made law as soon as this week. The package is the first major piece of major legislation of Biden's presidency, and it enjoys widespread support. A new morning consult poll found that 75% of voters support the package, including 5.9% of Republicans. In fact, poll after poll has shown the popularity of going big with the package. So obviously they're trying to set the narrative that the basically that the legislation is, like I said, it's a lot more progressive than you think, and it's really amazing, and it's got all these great things in it, and blah blah blah. So we're gonna obviously break down all the bullshit that they're putting out there, but I think generally you're already getting an idea of how the media is giving as many softballs to Joe Biden as they can, and it doesn't seem like it's really going to be. It's not going to be getting. This is the same thing. This is the kind of thing you're going to be seeing from the media when they're covering Joe Biden. So let's continue on here. So it says, let's see. So it says here, let's see. It says the elements of the package that make it so popular are strikingly similar to policies long favored by one of America's most popular senators, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. That's an interesting point to make, considering the bill doesn't have $15 minimum wage, let alone $20 or $25 minimum wage, which should be the minimum wage when you consider the rate of inflation. And we also haven't had a minimum wage hike since 2009. The last person to do it was George W. Bush, of all people. So I don't know how it would be so, why it would be so favored by Bernie Sanders. But you'll see in a second, Bernie Sanders is going to be showing his praise for it, his praise for it as well. It says, since he emerged as a serious candidate for president in 2016, Sanders has loudly advocated for the United States to join the ranks of developed countries that have embraced social democracy. It says the stimulus is chock full of social democratic ideas, putting cash into Americans' pockets, beefing up their unemployment benefits, and providing a child tax credit, to name just a few. It says, although Sanders defines himself as a democratic socialist, there's a big difference between socialism and social democracy. As the developed countries Sanders admires so much include pro-market democracies, often Scandinavian ones. And they're referring to a quote here that Bernie made in a 2016 CNN debate, and he says, "I think we should look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden and Norway, and learn what they have accomplished for their working people." It says the final American Rescue Plan does indeed echo some of these countries. Okay, that's not true at all. If that was the case, like I said, it would have all the different minimum wage. It would have UBI. I mean, all the European countries right now in the middle of their pandemic, just like we're having. Of course, they're handling theirs much better than we are. But in the middle of the pandemic that they're having, there a lot of them are giving out UBI essentially. They're basically doing UBI in several of these countries, and it's very successful. So and yet the mainstream media is portraying a one-time stimulus check, which, to be fair, this is the third one because technically Donald Trump gave one that was 1,400, and then he gave another one that was 600, and then now this is a was it 1,800 or 1,400, whatever. What the first one was 1,200. So the 1,200 one was from Joe Biden, from Donald Trump, and then a $600 one before he left office, and then now the $1,400 one, which was supposed to be $2,000 from Joe Biden. That's the one that they have in there, and it's only a one-time payment. So what good is that? It's fucking ridiculous. So anyway, so I mean, they're basically pointing to all these meek and milk toast policies that a progressive like Bernie Sanders supports, claiming that since he pushed for unemployment benefits and child tax credits, that means the legislation is really good. So what they're doing is they're using Bernie Sanders to say, hey, look, it's such a progressive policy. It's such a great piece of legislation that everybody loves, and you must love it too because Bernie Sanders said he loves it. So the mainstream media is trying to get you they're basically gaslighting you. They're telling you how good something is when it's really not that great. I mean, it's like I said, it's the bare minimum really, and they're trying to say like, well, look, Bernie Sanders supports it, so you must support it too, and you're probably gonna love it too because we're the mainstream media and we're gonna try and pound it into your head that you have to love this because we told you so basically, and then so yeah, so it's so these socially democratic policies Bernie has advocated for, it's a lot of them are very popular in the Scandinavian countries, but he has brought up in the past as he's obviously brought them up in the past as examples of what we should do. But again, we're not doing any of those things. So a lot of it is just it's a lot of it just gaslighting and just pretending to say that say that we're doing something, or at least we're headed in the direction of doing something that other Scandinavian and European countries are doing, when that's not really true. So let's see here, and so at the bottom here it says that it shows that Bernie Sanders, he basically endorsed the legislation. He never really pushed for. I think he may be pushing for he's pushing for or forcing the vote at least for the $15 minimum wage right now. But when it comes to what he's doing, what he did for the American Rescue Plan, he didn't really push for anything outside. Like he really modestly pushed for the $15 minimum wage. So it wasn't really, he wasn't going out there and being like a hardliner and being like, we have to do this $15 minimum wage and maybe even higher a living wage. And he was he was tepidly pushing for that kind of stuff, and let alone the whole idea of like a UBI and $2,000 checks. Now he was doing that. I think it was way back when. I think it was after the election, I believe. So after they were kind of tallying all the votes and everything, I think Bernie, including Josh Hawley of Missouri, a Republican, he was also pushing for the $2,000 checks as well. I think, and I believe it was reoccurring. I'm not sure exactly. So Bernie Sanders, he pushed his support for the American Rescue Plan, even though there is no $2,000 checks, like I said, or raising the minimum wage to $15. So later in this article, it says actually here we are right here. It's now they're starting to compare. They're starting to compare Joe Biden, and they did this earlier too. I think they did it. I think it was before the election, or maybe right as he won or something. They were saying like, "Oh, Joe Biden has the opportunity to be the next FDR. He has the opportunity to be this, this great progressive figure." It's it's so ridiculous. Bernie Sanders, I think, at the most was saying Joe Biden has the potential to be the next FDR. So in the sense that, hey, you can push all these great policies that people support, and then you can make a UBI the reality. You can make $15, if not higher minimum wage, a reality. Universal health care, Medicare for all, single payer, whatever you want to refer to it as. And you could do something like that. But no, Joe Biden, for the entire time that he was running for president in the primary, the whole time he was pushing for basically a public option. And a public option is not something that's really all that popular when you consider the idea that when you have a single insurer, just like you have in any other country, when you have that single insurer, you end up not you don't end up relying on the private market, which is going to screw you over at the end of the day. So unless you want to go get some like supplementary insurance, and what you want to get like plastic surgery, or you want to do, I think it's like chiropractic work or something, that makes sense. Like that kind of private insurance, supplemental insurance makes sense, but not when it comes to regular healthcare. When you need to take care of some sort of surgery, you have cancer. If you have cancer, you need to get chemotherapy, and you need to get, I don't know, you broke your knee or you tore your knee or something, you need to get surgery on that, or whatever, any kind of regular injury. That kind of stuff should be covered by regular single payer universal healthcare. And that's how it is in every other country. You go to Canada, you go to UK, Germany, all these different countries, they have those kind of things. And so no, Joe Biden is not any type of FDR figure. So that's completely ridiculous. So the next part here is talks about. So they talk about how Joe Biden is going to be the next FDR. I'm not really going to get into that, but it says, so obviously FDR is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He's somebody that pushed for the New Deal, and he also pushed really extensive bank regulation, which helped prevent a financial collapse, or any kind of financial collapse, for almost a century, until we had the financial collapse in 2008-ish, 9-ish, yeah. So basically 2008 or 9, yeah, because that was under George W. Bush, and then when Barack Obama became president, we had the collapse, and then he had to basically bail out the banks, and then he ended up bailing out all the corrupt banks that led to our crash happening, and that was ironically, or maybe unironically, was under the Obama-Biden presidency. So Biden was obviously Barack Obama's vice president. I'm sure he supported all of the things that Obama was doing as far as bailing out the banks and not prosecuting them and holding them accountable for their crimes, which they did because they gave out toxic mortgages to people that obviously needed some sort of, they took out loans. They wanted to put out mortgages, take out mortgages for whether they want to buy a house or whatever it is, and a lot of those mortgages were toxic mortgages, and they ended up going bankrupt from that because they had to pay all this extra interest that the corrupt banks were charging them. So, and then it talks about, like, the article talks about, like, Joe Biden going big, and like they're portraying it as like he's like, as if he's like a progressive, and as if he's doing something like really progressive and really amazing, and it's like he's going to be the next, what is it? He said, they keep repeating the "go big" line. Go big, go big. I mean, I don't really see. This is here. With his stimulus, Joe Biden promised to go big. The resulting bill spends money a lot like Sanders' beloved. It's again, they're pushing the fucking Scandinavian countries shit. This is not what he's doing. Why do they keep pretending as if Joe Biden is like all of a sudden this like firebrand leftist progressive? That's not even close to what he is. It's so ridiculous. And they keep pushing like the child tax credits and stuff. And now they're saying here, as you can see right here, it says halving the child poverty. So this is another line that a lot of the so-called progressives in Congress, they're saying, oh my God, the child poverty is being cut in half. So this is what a lot of them are saying, which is what they're doing. They're just repeating the line that's coming from the Biden administration. So whatever Biden is saying, they're saying it too. They just want to keep pushing this narrative as if Biden is doing all these amazing things, and he's not. I don't know. It's so, I have to repeat myself so many times because it's so ridiculous how they keep buying into this narrative. And the fact that a lot of these Congress members, all of them pretty much, they pretty much pushed for this legislation without barely even, without barely even using any of their leverage uh, when it came to $15 minimum wage and all these different progressive policies. And a lot of it is it's like, honestly, they're I think the Democrats, they're just so obsessed with the concept of, like, oh well, we have to go through the process, and we have to go through the kind of the, well, this is what we're doing when it comes to, when it comes to, we got to go through the process. We got to get, like, oh, we got to get bipartisan votes, and then we have to, work with our colleagues, and we got to do all these things. And, like, the whole thing is just like, it's just a way to, like, portray Democrats as being, like, wanting to work with the federal government, like, work within the confines of the federal government, and work within the whole kind of concept of, like, well, we got to make sure that government works, and we have to make sure that, and that's fine. I understand that. Like, to an extent, I understand where they're coming from, but a lot of it is just, it's way too much reliance on government, in the sense that you have to go through that process. When in reality, a lot of what you can do is you can push for, like, the governmental process, the whether it's getting legislation through Congress, Senate, all that stuff. But you have to be able to wield power. And honestly, Democrats don't know how to wield their power. They don't know how to wield their leverage. They don't know how to do any of these things, and it's kind of embarrassing, because they, when we, like, especially when we got the squad, so we got AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, all these people into Congress, and then we also got Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. We got all these different people, like, we got the squad into Congress, and then we're expecting them to do all these things, and a lot of them couldn't even leverage their vote to challenge the speakership of Nancy Pelosi, so they couldn't even do that. So how do we know that they're going to go? Because they're not, obviously. But how do we know we're going to go do that on policy too? So if they're not going to do it on policy, why the hell would they do? If they're not going to do it on when it comes to the speakership of Nancy Pelosi, who's extremely corrupt and corporatist herself, not even like a lefty Democrat of any kind, as far as the at least when it comes to actual leftists that see what policies she pushes for, she's clearly not a leftist at all. She's a corporate sellout, and she's like, at best, she's at best centrist, I would say, and that's probably being too nice. But and it's just like, it's obvious that, like, they can't leverage their vote when it comes to Nancy Pelosi. So how do we know they're gonna do it on any other on actual policies? So Medicare for all, $50 minimum wage, $20 minimum wage, whatever, whatever living wage. They're not gonna do it on those things. They're not gonna do it on universal health care. So it's like, they're just they're not leaders. They're all followers. They all just want to do what the kind of the norm is, the norms. They don't want to seem too radical, and they also don't want to get attacked by the media either. That's another fear that the squad type members and kind of so-called progressive members of Congress have, and the Senate have. They don't want to get attacked by the media, because they saw how hard Bernie Sanders got attacked when he was running in both 2016 and 2020, and they're scared that they're going to get the same kind of treatment, when in reality the media is extremely unpopular. They're not even the media is not liked by anybody outside of, just like DC and New York, all the places that the media, like, exists, as far as, like, NBC, CBS, ABC, like, all these networks, they exist in the East Coast, and then they come out of there. Their headquarters are basically there, and that's why everybody loves them over there, because that's where all those, like, hosts and contributors and stuff work, and that's where they live and everything. So they're used to that kind of lifestyle where, kind of like that higher lifestyle where, like, oh well, you're rich, you're really well off, so you can agree with all the corporate policies that we're pushing. So buried at the end of the article is basically, they're talking about how, so, like, the author admits that we don't have anything close to the policies that Scandinavian countries have, on top of the fact that a lot more of the policies that the left wanted, like student debt relief, more unemployment benefits, $15 minimum wage, universal health care, et cetera, were kept out of the bill, with the latter not happening due to recommendations from the Senate parliamentarian. So, see, that's another example of Democrats just wanting to follow the process. They wanted to follow the whole process of, like, going with the, like, they want to just go with the flow. They want to go along to get along. And they don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt that process. So when it comes to the Senate parliamentarian, I don't know if a lot of you know what the Senate parliamentarian is, but basically, it's a it's a position that it can be filled. You can fill that. You can get rid of the person that's currently the Senate parliamentarian and replace it with whoever you want. So it's not some sort of higher authority that decides what we're going to do. They're more on a kind of they give advice to the members of the Senate. So they say like it's like an advisory role, you know, and they say like, well, this is what we think you should do, and you know I don't know who the hell knows if they're experts on anything as far as policy, but I guess if they are, if they have that position, but that doesn't mean you have to just take whatever they say. So when it came to the Senate parliamentarian, I forgot what her name was, Elizabeth McCarthy. I don't know what her name was, but some lady that I honestly had never heard of. I never even heard of the Senate parliamentarian, honestly, until recently. And this person decided that oh yeah, it's not a good idea to put the $15 minimum wage inside this $1.9 trillion stimulus package, the American Rescue Plan, because I don't know what reason they gave. It's too expensive and it's too much money. How are we going to pay for it? You know, the usual bullshit excuse that they gave. That's probably the excuse they had. But basically, that person said like, no, it's not a good idea. We don't think you should do it. Okay, well, I mean, honestly, and that's the thing. Democrats could easily have just said like, all right, well, see you later. Get the fuck out of here. We don't need to listen to the Senate parliamentarian. This is something Republicans have done where they got rid of the Senate parliamentarian. I think it was when it was under George W. Bush, because the Senate parliamentarian didn't believe that they should have put I think like some sort of legislation in like the tax cut bill, the Bush tax cuts that George W. Bush initially passed, and they got rid of the Senate parliamentarian at the time, and they said, all right. You're out of here. We don't need you. We're going to do whatever we want. We'll put somebody in there that's going to agree with us on what we want to do. And he did it. And the Bush tax cuts are a major reason for why this country is honestly in the mess that it is, because it's led to so much income inequality that we're just like regular people are just keep getting screwed over. So it's just. Democrats are just so weak. They just don't know how to do anything when it comes to using leverage and wielding their power. And when they lose the opportunity to leverage, that opportunity is going to be gone. They're not going to be able to do it again. So that's the issue. You have to strike when the iron's hot, and they don't know how to do that. Let's see. So it says. So another part of the article. I don't know. I don't think there was anything else on the article that was really noteworthy. Yeah, that's it. So, just going back to the whole argument. So the whole argument about the weakness of Democrats, but also just like Democrats just listening to their corporate donors, because that's of course that's what they love to do. It's a very consistent theme for Democrats to be like this, and honestly, they get a lot of their encouragement from the media to be like that too. So anytime you watch any CNN, MSNBC, obviously to an extent even Fox News, but they're like obviously right wing, so they're gonna hate anything that Joe Biden and the Democrats do. But even then, they're gonna push for a lot of like corporate policies, pro corporate policies, and yeah, it's one of those things where you can't even get to the point of pushing your narrative a lot of times, because the media is obviously, like I said before, they're attacking the members of the squad, and any Democrat that has the balls to stand up and say something that maybe like the establishment doesn't like to hear, but the corporate media, because they're corporate, they work for the establishment, because the establishment is also corporate. So they're all intertwined. They all work together. They all work together to sow discord within, among regular people. So, and especially among people of the same class. But instead of doing things instead of trying to bring all the people of the same class together, they actually pit the rich against the middle class and the poor. And what happens? All these people end up hating each other. And a lot of times these issues are also predicated on race as well. So all the black people, hate the white people, hate the Hispanic people, hate the Asians. A lot of Asian hate crimes against Asians has been going up a lot. Middle Eastern people. So everybody just ends up getting pitted against each other instead of focusing on class. So when you focus on class, you end up focusing on what on the economic issues that truly affect people. When it comes to, especially when you're living in like a more poor area. So if you're living in a poor area, the chances of you making it big in a poor area compared to living in somewhere in like Los Angeles or New York or something like that, places where like Upper West Side of New York, people are going to be a lot more wealthy. They're going to be able to afford a lot more things compared to somebody living in like Cleveland, Ohio or something, and it's all different. So like you can't. So like there's that this whole class war stuff has been going on for so long, and people truly don't seem to understand or maybe want to understand it. And a lot of it's perpetuated by the media, and it's perpetuated by the corporate establishment, and they want all the different races to go against each other. They want all the different poor middle class and higher income people to well, not to. I mean, obviously you will have to obviously get them to hate each other, because if you don't get like the poor and middle class people to go, to kind of call out the upper class people, then they're never going to be held to account as far as paying their fair share of taxes and all that stuff, and like it's going to just lead to the further expansion of or at least the further expanding of the income gap. And but when it comes to that, like you have to be able to hold the rich accountable. Make sure those are the people that are the ones that are they're gonna, like, those are the people that are being scrutinized, not the just like, oh well, I'm a middle class person and then I'm just gonna shit on like lower income people because they I don't know, because they're moochers and they're bums and they're this and that. Like that, what good does that do you? And also another really stupid thing is that whenever Joe Biden, so whenever like something like Joe Biden or Democrats in general, they push for policies that are so like the kind of like the neoliberal centrist type policies. And all the Democrats, like all the kind of Democratic loyalists, they jump on board and they love what they're hearing from Joe Biden, and then they end up, shitting on those people that are lower income. And for example, the people that are receiving like unemployment benefits and food stamps and stuff like that, they're like, oh well, get out, pull yourself up from your bootstraps and stop being so lazy and stuff like that. Like it's like this right wing. All of a sudden, these Democrats that are like, oh, we support universal healthcare, all of a sudden they become right wingers because Joe Biden is pushing for policies that are right wing policies, and those people just end up supporting whatever Joe Biden does. And those people, without I guess realizing in many cases, they don't realize that they're advocating for Republican policies. And that's the problem. That's the big problem that's happening with the Democratic Party. They're becoming more and more like Republicans, and they're becoming very obviously very right wing and very corporate. And that's a serious problem serious problem in this country. And people don't really seem to understand that. They don't really seem to want to recognize it, and it's really a shame. So yeah, and the final point I wanted to make, and people, I don't know if a lot of people remember this. I definitely remember it. I probably haven't brought it up as far as much as I should when calling out centrists and Democratic loyalists and stuff. But back when Joe Biden was running in the primary, he was pushing for the public option. He was actually pushing for it really hard. In fact, I think he was pushing for the public option more than even a lot of like people like Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. I don't know if Amy Klobuchar was. I think Amy Klobuchar was pushing for the public option too, but she was kind of like, obviously she was an opportunist in more ways than one anyway. But when it came to Joe Biden, he was the one that was pushing for the public option more than anything. Because compared to somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who everybody, the media was lauding as this like amazing, political figure that's coming up and he's on his comeuppance, and he's amazing, and he's a gay guy, and he's young, and he's really woke and all that stuff. He was the guy that was pushing for Medicare for all who want it. So basically, it was the public option, but he never called it the public option. So he was trying to be crafty, and he was trying to be slick, and he was trying to get these this obviously popular policy as far as Medicare for all goes. He was trying to get it by without actually calling it Medicare for all. So he just added a couple extra words to it, tweaked it, and then said like, yeah, no, I support Medicare for all, but I also support choice. And when I support choice, that means I support the choice for you to be screwed over by the health insurance monopoly, basically. So the guy was honestly, he was trying to be crafty, but it wasn't really working. If it was working, he would have obviously won a lot more states and a lot more delegates and everything. Obviously, he barely won anything. He didn't even win fucking Iowa. Everybody pushes the fact that he won the state of Iowa, which was the first primary in among Democrats. They claim he won the primary, but he didn't even win more votes than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders won the more votes. The ironic thing is they say Pete Buttigieg won the Iowa primary, when even though Bernie Sanders won more of the popular vote, but then Joe Biden got the most delegates. Isn't that crazy? I don't even understand how the hell that works. It's so wild how corrupt the Democratic primary system is. It's unbelievable. I thought it was bad in 2016. How bad it was in 2020 just showed to me how even worse than it is right now, and that's all on purpose. It's not by accident. They rig it like that on purpose. So when Joe Biden was running in the primary, he was pushing for a public option, and he was pushing for minor tweaks to Obamacare. He was also very clear in pushing for a minimum wage. That's also something people don't remember. And it was like he was pushing it for so much. He was pushing for it so much that even Bernie Sanders believed that Biden was going to champion that when Bernie Sanders endorsed him. So I think Bernie Sanders endorsed Biden in, I forgot the exact, I think it was April, May? Yeah, it's June, something like, yeah, I think, yeah, it was a little bit like before June, I think. Sometime in April or May. But whatever it was, when Bernie Sanders endorsed Joe Biden, which was a hell of a lot earlier than he endorsed Hillary Clinton, which I would have liked to have seen him, wait a little bit longer, but whatever. But when he endorsed Biden, they did like a joint Zoom call press conference thing where Bernie Sanders basically like groveled to Biden and said, "Oh, I support you. You're going to lead our country into the next whatever, and then you're going to defeat Donald Trump, and you're going to push for all these progressive policies." And Biden was sitting there, "Oh yeah, totally, yes, I'm definitely going to be pushing for that. I definitely support everything you're doing, Bernie." He was totally. Bernie was so cucked. He was falling for all the bullshit. Biden was gaslighting him the entire time. It was so pathetic. Another thing Joe Biden was doing was he was pushing for, I believe it was $50,000 in student debt cancellation or relief, and then now he's pushed down to $10,000. So, and he's not even gonna. Honestly, I don't think he's going to sign any kind of legislation that's going to address student loan debt. But when it came to as far as the promise that he made initially was $50,000. So he was very gung ho on not, canceling any student loan debt, or at least not a lot of it. And then he said, okay, fine, I'll do $50,000. And then when he won the presidency, or at least when he, won the primary and then went into the general election, he was like, yeah, I support student loan debt relief, but he didn't push for anything higher than $10,000. And now it's $10,000, which it's additionally means tested too. So it's just, you cannot trust anything Joe Biden says. The guy just constantly. You can't trust anything he says. You can't, take his word for anything, because everything he says, he always goes back on it. So it's I don't know. I don't know what the guy is saying that is really truly genuine, because a lot of it is not, and it's sad, and it's sad to, fall for that kind of stuff, because it's so, I feel like people are just they're so wanting to be on Team Democrat because they hate Trump and they don't want another Trump, which by the way they're probably going to get it anyway. let alone the fact that Democrats they're not gonna have control. They're gonna lose control of Congress in 2022, I believe. I don't think they have a shot to retain Congress, let alone we'll see about the Senate, but Congress definitely not. They've been losing it for the past couple elections now. After gaining it, I think in 2018, then they wanted back in 2018, and then 2020 they kept it, and then 2022 is coming. Well, yeah, it's not looking good. It's only like a single digit advantage for the Democrats in Congress right now. So Joe Biden is not helping progressives. He's not helping progressives get anywhere. He's not doing anything that is going to be to the benefit of progressives, and I don't think he really cares. He's just like, he looks at it as like, well, I got to do what my corporate donors want. I can't piss off the people that are, funding my, filling my campaign coffers for, 2024, or let alone just giving me donations. And those are the kind of people that he wants to give service essentially to those people. I think that's the nice way of putting it. He wants to make sure that those people are taken care of, basically. And if as long as those people aren't pissed off at him, he's happy. That's the way he sees it. So that's the way it is. And Joe Biden is never going to change. He's never going to be a progressive, and the media is going to constantly swoon over him and fawn over him, pretending as if he's some sort of big time progressive when he's not.